difference exactly when you get it. He's trying to break in with hydralisks. With these small bridges, those really help, and that helps a lot on this map. Again, sorry I couldn't do this on one of the tournament maps. They're not really good for this. Well, not saying they're not good for this build, but they require a different style of play that I'm not really used to with this build. Like, personally, I wouldn't use this build on a tournament map, but, you know, it's not bad. And the vulture drop can certainly catch your opponent off guard and cause him to freak out, or maybe even overreact and do something crazy. So add your third and fourth factories around the same time. By the way, when your armory finishes right away, you should get +1 attack, and then when that finishes, get +1 armor. You're gonna push out with 4 factories and +1 armor and +1 attack. So now I'm just building up that force. You don't want to move out before then, unless you see him taking a really fast 4th base. If he takes 3 bases, that's normal. You should not be afraid of a 3-base Zerg on 2-base mech. If he takes a 4th base, though, you're going to want to push out as soon as possible. Unless you're close to 1-1, in which case you should wait for +1 upgrades. I'm just building an engineering bay because I saw his muta switch, and I want to, you know, be prepared in case anything happens. Because it's pretty common for Zerg, you know, just to force you to respond to his muta switch and make a couple of Valkyries. I already have a couple just to be safe. But if he doesn't have mutas, you obviously don't need them. He just runs a bunch of mutas into my choke, which is not what he really meant to do. That was a pretty big mistake. He lost a lot of mutas and they took a lot of damage, which is why I'm laughing at him. So I'm just, yeah, mech. Some people find mech really boring and lame because you just sit in your base for a long time, but it's actually really a new style of play because of the harass and different aspects that people never really thought about that now make mech very useful as another build compared to a standard marine medic for Terran vs. Zerg. I personally like mech. The disadvantages and advantages of mech compared to M&M are basically mech is easier to control mid and late game. Early game, the harass though requires a lot of multitasking that if you mess up your build too much, you won't have any units after your harass, which is not good because then you'll die to any subsequent attack. So yeah, he's just destroying a lot of my SCVs. I don't want this to happen, but you know, that's life. He's scourging my Valkyries, which is pretty smart, but he's forced to run away because only one of his scourge hit my Valkyries. I'm getting ready to push, macroing up some units, making sure I don't forget any supply so my push can be as strong as possible. When I'm, yeah, what I do for mech is I like to have 1 machine shop when I have 4 factories, and then to add a 2nd machine shop when I get up to 6 factories. Goliath, in Terran vs. Zerg, you need less tanks than you do in Terran vs. Protoss, simply because Zerg units are a lot weaker and have less range than things like Dragoons, and they're basically, simply put, Goliaths are a lot stronger against Zerg than they are against Protoss. Therefore, you can and they counter mass mutalisks decently. They stop him from going mass mutalisk. So, as you can see, I'm scanning his expansions. He's got 3 bases, as I said, is pretty standard. He's moving in with a lot of mutalisks. I notice he has some scourge, but I don't really have any choice. I have to use these Valkyries to try and hold him off, or at least delay till my Goliaths get there. So that's one thing that's really hard about mech, is that your army's very fat and not mobile. It reminds me of Archons, actually. Since your army's not very mobile, first of all, you have to attack in a different way, because you can't just run around killing every single expansion Zerg makes, or else you'd never kill him. And you can't react to his attacks that easily, or defend your bases that easily, unless you're prepared. So, mech, you really have to try to scout what your opponent's doing and react accordingly, because if you're not prepared for what your opponent's doing, you will lose the game. So he's trying to snipe some tanks. That's probably a good idea. That's what you want to do with mutas, because if I have pure Goliath, something like mass hydras and zerglings would completely destroy me. You really need these tanks for countering hydras, but since I have so many tanks, that was pretty much a bad move, because if your opponent has that many tanks, each single tank won't be that crucial, and the mutas will be more helpful when you flank the Terran army. So I'm starting my third command center above my on my cliff, so I can just float it down and keep safe and not have to. It probably takes actually less time this way because I don't have to move it. So I see he has like a good amount of hydras, but not that many. This is pretty standard mech domination. I have a really large force, and it's really hard to react. I killed the panda bear guy, by the way. I wanted to prove that panda bear guy is not God. You can win when you kill the panda bear guy. It's the truth. So yeah, I'm pretty much just rolling over him, because mech is really strong if your opponent doesn't macro or like do the things efficiently. Because like the way mech works is it's just so strong once it gets a decent size, and upgrades also help it a lot more than bio also. So now I've pretty much won this game. I made a Valkyrie because he had a bunch of mutas before. After this, I'd be taking my third base, adding 2 factories, and getting a science facility so I can get +2 upgrades. Late game, you're gonna want to have as many upgrades as you can, and as many bases as you can, obviously, preferably with gas. Gas is really important because Goliaths cost gas, and Vultures don't, so it's more important than in Terran vs. Protoss. So this game is over. Thanks for watching. This basically shows a solid standard mech game. It's not really that hard to use the mech army, as you saw, and the harass is really effective early game. So thanks for watching.